Well, hello, Wayne. It's so nice to see you. How are you?
I'm just great, Herb. Great to see you. Thanks.
Thanks for taking time to chat about one of our mutually beloved favorite people, J.S. Bach.
Absolutely.
Um, I have to say, I've had the pleasure of working with you many times, and if you don't mind, I'd like to start our conversation by just thanking you for all that you do. You serve with distinction in so many roles in the larger community, but not the least of which is you've been a real um, cornerstone of making Bach and Baltimore possible with the way you help us with presenting concerts at your Lutheran Church in Ellicott City, and just I'm so grateful to you because it's it's a precious organization to me, and it takes a lot of takes, as they say, it takes a community to make it run.
Well, you're most welcome, and it's really an honor and privilege to be involved with your group. So glad that my church in Ellicott City is often open to presenting concerts there, and chance that I've had to perform with the group. So it's really a privilege for me too. So thank you for that.
You know, I'm always interested when I get a chance to chat with the members of the orchestra and so on, one-on-one, as to what, if there was a pivotal thing, or what kind of moved you to pursue a career as a professional musician.
um, well, I've been musical for longer than I can remember. Intrigued by the piano and got surrounded by music in many ways. Grew up in a little country church in northern Minnesota, and if you took piano lessons, you were expected to be able to play in church. So I moved into that area then rather quickly. I was interested in high school in many different things. I feel like I could have gone into literature, history, any of the humanities, but finally it just sort of realized, no, it's going to be music, and very specifically church music. But of course, it goes beyond that.
Well, if you grew up in Minnesota and it was going to be church music, it almost had to be Lutheran church music, right?
And that was predominant what was around me, yes. But
Yeah, and
there
there's
was
several wonderful colleges up there that have
right,
very strong church music
right,
programs and singing programs and so
right.
on.
And I went to one of those, Concordia Moorhead, which is
Yeah,
very well known for its choral work, but also had a good background in organ there. So I
yeah.
went in actually as a piano major, and then discovered something I hadn't been exposed to all that much, and that was the organ and its great literature. More than just to be able to leading hymns in church and playing short pieces. So within 2 weeks, I had switched over from piano major to organ major. So
Wow, that's fast. I grew up in a church that had just basically world-class musicians,
uh-huh.
and heard people playing Bach in particular
Yeah,
when I was a kid, and man, did I fall in love with that music. And in particular, I think Bach fugues
yeah,
have been a particular um, source of pleasure and joy for me, and they're
yeah,
just so wonderful.
yeah.
One of the things that you and I have had the privilege of is having good musicians teach us about what makes music tick, and that's one thing I've tried to share in the Bach and Baltimore series is just a dig under the surface for what it is about the music that makes it more than just pretty. That, you know, the extra levels of communication that you don't have to listen to, but if you're aware of, sometimes add to your pleasure. And I hope Bach and Baltimore is, particularly when we talk about the musical language of cantatas, I hope that it's had some effect in helping people get a deeper appreciation of that wonderful group of pieces.
Well, it's so important because our culture mostly just treats music as entertainment, something we either like or we don't. And as we know, there is so much beneath the surface of any piece of music. But when you get to the great masters, especially Bach, you find out, the pleasure of hearing it, but also the pleasure of performing it. And as you know, those things don't always go hand in hand. But also, the more you study them, it doesn't let you down. some pieces of music are nice on the surface, and then when you get dig a little deeper, you realize they're just kind of superficial. But with Bach, it's and many others, but it's the music that keeps on giving, I guess we could say. And if we just looked at the thousands of books and dissertations, articles that have been written about Bach's music, people aren't always in agreement, but what something means, but they are in agreement that there is so much there. But even if it was just purely academic, purely symbolic, it wouldn't make any difference unless it was also interesting to listen to, an effective piece of music. So I compare it sometimes to program music. Knowing the program of a piece of music makes it more interesting. But if it's not good music to start with, interesting music that could stand on its own without the program, then it really doesn't make it as program music either. So,
it's interesting for me to think about Bach on lots of different levels. But he's born in 1685, which means that it's approaching 3.5 centuries since his birth. Astonishing that his music still seems completely relevant and fresh and communicative to people like us. We live in a world that Bach couldn't even imagine. First of all, there's more noise in the world. There's more machines in the world. There's more people in the world. The world moves faster. And yet the music still communicates on a profoundly human and life-changing level. It's an amazing achievement. The other thing that I sometimes think about with Bach, I think almost more than any other composer, Bach's music works at multiple tempos. You can hear people play certain pieces quite fast, and then somebody else play the piece equally, accurately and well, and with expression at a quite different tempo. For example, quite slow, and they both work.
yes.
I mean, that's astonishing. You can't say that about everybody, So other composers, the range is like this big where the tempo seems to work correctly. But anyway.
I've felt that, and I've made that point many times, especially when I'm teaching composition or even form and analysis. If the structure is there, you can do all sorts of different things to it. But there are many pieces of music, as you say, that only work at a certain tempo, or as an organist, that only work if you're on a French cathedral with a certain type of organ and a certain type of acoustic. But with Bach and many other the Baroque masters and others too, you can do all sorts of things to them. Think back when I was studying, we had trying to make Bach as pure as possible, but you also had the Swingle singers and you had the Moog synthesizer, which were new and innovative at the time, but it still works, and that's because it's structured so well, it's constructed so well. And so it can handle many different types of treatments and still has something to say.
So late in his life, Bach did these comprehensive pieces that tried to sort of sum up his life's work in certain ways. The B minor Mass was one of them. But one of them for organ, and I know you played this piece, and in fact, I know you've just played it, was the Klavierübung, a comprehensive piece that he wrote. And I have with me the opening page of the fugue, and isn't that, first of all, just his calligraphy, the way he scored his pieces,
yes,
visually beautiful, isn't it?
Yes, that's just amazing. And I believe he had to etch that into copper in order to make that work. So yes, at the end of his life, last decade, he seemed to be bent on preserving not only his legacy, but the style that he felt was going away. He knew it was going away. People often called him old-fashioned at the time, including his own sons. So he was preserving. He wanted to get these out there, and that included, as you said, the Klavierübung Part 3, which is what this is, the B minor Mass and musical offering and art of fugue and those major things, which he also strove to get into final copies, not necessarily published, but at least into well copied out manuscripts.
For example, we know the B minor Mass he didn't hear performed even though he assembled it and wrote some new music for it. So listen, before we got together, when we spoke a few weeks ago, you told me that you were playing this Klavierübung, the opening and closing movements,
Mhm.
and the closing movement is called the Saint Anne Fugue,
Mhm.
spelled the way my daughter spells her name, Anne. And I wonder, I'm going to ask you to let us hear you play that, but can we just talk about it for just a moment? That it's in three flats, it has three subjects, it has three parts. I think it's loaded with the kind of symbolism you're talking about. Would you like to just say a word or two about how you see that piece being put together?
Sure, sure. People, again, scholars of many different types and eras have pointed out the symbolism in here. Do we know for sure? No, and that's probably part of the charm, because Bach didn't say, here's why I wrote such and such a thing. But there is a strong Trinitarian pulse, though. Even the prelude, like the fugue, has three major sections, three major themes, with key flat major, which has three flats. And again, the fugue has the three subjects, the first one, which you're showing right here. And this is why in the English-speaking world, it has become received the label of Saint Anne, because the opening theme resembles that English tune, Saint Anne, to which most Christians sing, "Oh God, our help in ages past." So that's often just its nickname for that. But in the fugue especially, most of the scholars have pointed out that that first theme, written in long notes, it looks very Renaissance-like. So is he making it more of a tribute to the past, or a reminder of past music, of which he was well aware? And it's very broad and dignified, so it seems to emphasize perhaps God the Father. And then moves into the second section, which is a very different in style. Moves into rapid eighth notes, and it's 2- and 3-part counterpoint, and 4-part counterpoint in there. Very much of his own, the high Baroque style. Something you would find in many of his other fugues for organ and other keyboard. And then you get to the third theme, and it's in many ways very dance-like, very forward-looking, more like the upcoming classical style that many of the composers that were his contemporaries, including his own sons, were more embracing at this time. But yet he combines them together. And so is it a little treatise on past, present, and future? Is it a statement of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and the unity of all those together? And I think we could probably say yes, but again, he left no notes about it. So we're sort of left to wonder. One of those things that will stand in line with Bach when we get to when we all get to heaven and ask our list of questions.
We're left to wonder, but interestingly enough, he did similar things, not so much with the musical language, but particularly with things that had texts in some of the cantatas.
Right.
And so, like so many things in Bach, the first time you bump into it, you say, well, we can impose a point of view, and maybe that's a coincidence. And then you find it again and again and again, and you realize, no, wait a minute.
Yeah.
It's a pattern.
Right.
Of a deeply thoughtful person. I mean, this is the same person who did this. That's his logo. And if you're looking at it on the screen, sometimes you don't see it, but it's the script letters JSB, forwards and in mirror image. And then the one in the middle that some people say looks like a pineapple, those are those 6 letters on top of each other. And that was the way Bach thought. He was just so deeply thoughtful in so many ways. Yeah. So listen, let's wrap up by asking you if you would. I know you've just played this piece and recorded it. To play the fugue, to let us listen to you playing the fugue, and it would be a great pleasure. I want to thank you in advance because I know it's going to be just so splendid. Tell us very, very quickly, because we're out of time. The organ upon which you played this.
Okay. When you say I recorded it, it wasn't recorded like for a commercial recording. It was just the church itself recorded it because they moved into sort of a combined format for their recitals. A few people were allowed to attend if they pre-registered, but then it was live streamed and then will be made available. This church is at Grace Episcopal Church in Keswick, Virginia, which is just northeast of Charlottesville, and not terribly far from the Taylor and Booty organ factory. And this organ is indeed Taylor and Booty Opus 77. So it's a brand new instrument. I don't believe they reused anything from past instruments. And it also, when you see the video, it was a part of a renovation of the whole church, the front of the church especially. So it's a 3-manual organ, mechanical action, mechanical key action. It has electric combination action, which is a great combination for recitals and for liturgical use. And it's designed and voiced and plays so well that it was just a joy to practice there and to play the recital.
Well, so I want to thank you, Wayne. I'm eager to listen to it. And this is everyone, Wayne Wold, playing the Bach St. Anne Fugue, which is the nickname, one of Bach's last organ pieces that we just had the pleasure of hearing Wayne describe for us a little bit, and we appreciate that. And here we go with the St. Anne Fugue of J.S. Bach. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello again. Since the time when we recorded that interview with Herb, we have discovered that the recital I played in Virginia on that Taylor and Booty organ was not recorded as the equipment was not working properly. So instead, I will record the Bach Fugue here at my church, First Lutheran Church in Ellicott City, Maryland, on this very fine Cassavant pipe organ.